If you are understanding the 5 skandhas correctly, you can see that a solid self is never being produced. The volitional actor that occurs in the 5th skandha is a momentary weaving of all 5 skandhas, but no persistent self is actually produced by this process. And the world that is generated in the 5th skandha is largely conceptual. It's happening mainly in our minds. But we don't see either of these things. We think there's a solid continuous self moving through a world that's external and has nothing to do with us. In terms of Zen, our substitution of concepts for the actual phenomena is where all this unreality begins. It begins when we start moving through a landscape of concepts instead of the actual world. We start thinking that partners and mother-in-laws and iPhones are really there, and we end up interacting with our own concepts instead of the actual phenomena. The next trap we fall into is this. All these mental concepts in our heads are structurally extended in space and time. And since we are always interacting with our concepts, we think these structures of space and time are actually there in the world. The result of all this are full-blown moments of self and world that are completely made up, but that we are sure are real. Let's go back to that moment of breakfast, partner, sunlight, table, and frying pan, and watch how all this happens. For as long as this moment happens in a dependently arising fashion, there is no self arising in this moment that is separate from all the phenomenal aspects of that moment. There is frying pan, partner touching your shoulder, sunlight, and so on. It's all a moment of world, and it's all a moment of you. Then something happens. It's like when the needle suddenly scrapes on the turntable. Your partner puts the milk back in the fridge and does not notice that the door doesn't close all the way. Instantly, this dependently arising moment of world devolves into partner, slightly open door, and slightly irritated self, looking across empty space at both of these things. The actual phenomenal events of an open door and your partner have just been swapped out for 2 concepts. Doors should be properly closed each time, and a partner who is capable of doing this. But the world isn't happening this way. So a simple phenomenal event, a slightly open door, develops by way of the skandhas into a slightly irritated moment of self, one that is struggling against a world which is not following its narrative of how things should be. These 2 concepts generate a 3rd concept, a you that is positioned in relationship to these first 2 concepts. This you is thinking of a better moment of door and partner, one that will result in a happier version of self. Yet another concept. In your head, all 3 of these concepts are extended in space and time. The refrigerator door is a solid persistent thing, and it has a future state in which it is properly closed. Both your partner, who eventually gets better at closing the door, and you, who are happier as a result, are the same people, existing at a future point in time. So both of these concepts are extended in space and time. In that 5th skandha moment, this triangle of concepts is what we see happening in the world. It all seems to be substantial and real. Partner, door, and you all seem to have inherent identity and persist in time, and we think this moment of world is actually occurring. We now have at least 3 different elevated concepts that are at work here, and this is all creating a full-blown moment of both world and slightly irritated self. Having substituted concepts for the actual events, we are attempting to make the actual events fit our narrative. Refrigerator doors are not that hard to close all the way. My partner should be capable of doing this. I've pointed this out before, but she never takes it seriously. It's just like she is when it comes to feeding the cat, remembering to fill the gas tank, turning off the lights at night, and on and on. At this point, the small self that we spoke of earlier has fully arisen. It has legs, and it's off to the races. All of its 5 aspects are now in play. Radar has identified a problem, and is presenting the world in terms of that problem. Narrative is not succeeding in forcing the world to be how it should be, and is arguing with the world that's occurring. Tank Commander you is thinking of what to say to your partner. And all of this is already getting presented in the trial, in terms of, is your relationship really working or not? Are you getting respected? And so on. All of this, absolutely all of it, started with a moment of attachment, of grabbing on to a single phenomenal event, the slightly open refrigerator door. That caused a dependently arising phenomenal moment of breakfast, partner, and sunlight to rapidly devolve into a solid external world with a you at the center, a you that has a problem with that world. The small self has been born yet again.